Hello and welcome to the Backlot 605 podcast. I am one of your hosts. I am Casey Coleman. Joined with me, as always, is my co-host, Brian Mensing. Brian, what's up?
Oh, just another day in paradise. It's actually starting to warm up and actually feel nice outside that you don't actually need to wear, 7 layers of coats.
I could go outside right now in my American flag underwear and just run around and feel fine. That is what we're trying to say.
It's your American flag diaper. Get it right.
I wear one every day. Just in honor of this movie, the reason we bring it up, we are talking The People versus Larry Flint, which is a joke in this movie that we will be discussing here in the second half of the show as we are continuing Versus Month. We're not just doing head-to-head fights between a couple monsters like we did last week with Freddy versus Jason. No, we're doing political dramas about the U.S. Supreme Court. Why not?
Because it's actually very entertaining. Like this story should not be real, and it's 100% real.
It is 100% real, and to help us bring some of that realism to life here on this podcast, we are joined by fellow podcast hosts from the Local Lou podcast and This Movie's History, Local Lou.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. This is really exciting. What a great episode to be on, too.
Because everybody loves to talk about Larry Flint.
So the reason I specifically asked Lou about this one is because I knew there was a historical aspect to this. Mm-hmm. And I mean, both of your podcasts that you host are going to have a historical aspect to it already, whether it's Local Lou or This Movie's History. So we might be putting you on the hot seat and asking you for some of this movie's history. I don't know.
Did you do a lot of research while looking into this movie?
Nope. Can't wait.
Guess what? Neither did I, because YouTube has nothing on this movie.
They really don't. Yeah, that is interesting. Well, they will now.
Yeah.
Welcome to a movie made before the internet.
Oof.
Yeah, and I mean, I watched like 2 interviews, I think, that I found on YouTube, and they were hard to find and not in good quality. So If you're listening, YouTube gods, please give us People versus Larry Flint content, at least Woody Harrelson talking about it, because I couldn't even find an interview with him.
Oh, boy.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so we'll be the ones on YouTube providing commentary, I guess, for this movie, giving it a little spark here on the YouTube sphere. But before we get into that, so let's jump into the box office numbers for this past week that we had here. Some good box office numbers. Again, what we talked about last week is kids' movies, family movies will be ruling the box office here for a while. No exception is number 1, Raya and the Last Dragon, $8.6 million. Number 1 at the box office. Also available on Disney Plus for the low price of $30 to own.
Yes. No. It's a rent. It is a long-term rental.
It's a rental on your subscription service you already pay for a subscription on.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would almost bet to say that if it wasn't for that, that number would be higher because of there's the theaters. Like, for instance, we're not even getting this locally because the theater, Cinemark doesn't do the dual release format stuff. So they basically ignore this and whatnot. Obviously, we're not going to know what the $30 price tag is. So obviously this number would go up, but.
And we'll never know. I don't think we'll ever get those numbers from Disney. They don't need to give them out. They don't ever have to give them out to us. But I think you bring up a good point with, at least for us here locally, is like Derek, who writes, our Coming Soon articles. He drove all the way to, I think he drove to Mitchell to watch this in the theater, which for us is probably the closest place you're going to be able to watch this. Is about hour and a half, 2-hour drive, any which way around, Sioux Falls. But I mean, Cinemark, that is a bold stance to take, and it's the wrong stance to take.
Right.
Get this movie in your theater because you guys are going to go under if you try to keep this model, because the industry is moving way past your old model of we can't do same day and date release of streaming, theatrical release. It's like you got to play the game with the studios. They're the one with the movie.
Right. Exactly. it's just like with anything, with times change and everything like that, you need to adjust your model to accommodate, because if you don't accommodate, you're going to go under. I mean, it's just that simple and whatnot. We're not releasing movies like we were 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think, go ahead.
Well, have either of you guys actually paid $30 to watch anything in this time?
I couldn't even justify doing the $20 rentals for like the premium VODs.
Right.
Because I live by myself. So it's not like I can even justify like, oh, I've got a roommate, so that's $10 per person. Like that's the price of a movie ticket. Like in that aspect, like for instance, like I still haven't seen Promising Young Woman because I couldn't justify renting for $20. So this $30 price tag makes me go, I'm just going to wait, because they've already even announced when it's good. Like I've got Disney Plus, and they've already announced when is it going to be free on Disney Plus. Well, okay, for me, Raya and the Last Dragon comes out in June. This is June or July or something like that. Like I will wait. Heck, I haven't even seen Milan yet. So
yeah, you're fine. Yeah, that one's.
I've heard.
Mm-mm. Yeah, you're good.
Eddie Murphy's really good in it, Brian. That's all you need to know. That's the only Milan that exists, right?
Yeah, it should be. Why do they keep doing these live action Disney things? I don't get it. Somebody needs to stop it. Somebody needs to stop it. It's bad. I don't like them.
I've heard really good things about this movie. I am excited to see it, but again, I can't justify $30. I also can't justify driving, over an hour to go watch this movie, because it's not getting carried in Sioux Falls, the biggest city in South Dakota, and we don't even have the newest Disney animated movie. That makes zero sense to me. And I think all industries within the movie world have to adjust going forward, whether it be theaters, streaming services, studios, they're all adjusting. And I think the ones that are the slowest too right now are the theaters, which I think is a detriment to them, because the movie system is continuing to move on past them. They need to start catching up.
Well, I think part of the problem is that it's a little bit. It's definitely on the theaters for the ones that are just basically saying this is not going to be a thing. We're not going to release a movie that someone can watch stream someplace else, whatever the case is. There is definitely that, but it's also the studios who are not really accommodating and adjusting the contract stuff between the theaters and the studios, because if they're not being more lenient so that the theaters can get a different cut of the movie and whatnot, why would the theater want to? Why would the theater want to waste the space on a screen if they're not going to get any additional monies out of it? So I get both sides of it. So
because if you take you and your, if you take a family, a husband, wife, and 3 or 4 kids out to Raya and the Last Dragon, you're spending $100 at least on concessions. That's why you want people to come to your theater. I mean, they weren't before COVID. Theaters weren't making money on Disney stuff. So I don't understand this model for Cinemark was doing this. I think another big chain also said they weren't carrying this. I don't remember which one.
I think it's AMC.
Was it AMC?
I think so.
They're
having a crazy year themselves, but.
Do you think all the movie theaters are going to make it out of this? Do you think that do you think people are going to go back to the movies when we're able to? Yeah.
I think so, but I think it's going to be a different environment. I think going forward, we're definitely going to see more of the repertory screenings, the retro classics and whatnot. I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon, unless you just happen to have a week where you just have so many monster tent poles coming out that they don't have room for it. But I think the repertory screenings are going to be a constant.
I don't think they will, because besides our state theater in Sioux Falls, they're not really making money. I mean, look at the West Mall had to close because of, some repairs and stuff, but you'd have to imagine that if the movie industry was, starting to come back, they would just stay open through that and keep at least a couple screens open or whatever. And same with the Cinemark. Last I heard, one of our Cinemarks was only running weekends. I don't know if that was still a thing. I also haven't been to a Cinemark since Tenet in August. So I don't know how they're running right now, because I think it's going to be very, very different going forward. And it seems to me is like right now, everybody has a feeling I am over COVID. I want to be done with this. We're kind of hopefully on the other half of it. Vaccines are rolling out, every day. And it seems like we can start to try to get back to normal. So I think movie theaters have to start getting in that mindset. But the normal is not the same normal that we had a year ago.
Right.
No. I did go see Vertigo at the State the other day, and that was really cool. And that was the first time I've been to a movie since the pandemic at all. So it was so exciting just to be outside of my apartment.
Right.
I liked it.
I didn't have to make this popcorn for this movie. I could just buy it.
Yeah.
Number 2, continuing that kids movie trend, Tom and Jerry, $6.62 million. This is what I'm talking about with our day and date release, because Tom and Jerry is, free with your HBO Max subscription. Still pulls in second weekend out, $6.62 million. There is no reason Raya and the Last Dragon should not have made more money than Tom and Jerry did last week.
Oh, absolutely. Because last week, Tom and Jerry did what, 12? This is almost like a 50% drop on top of it.
Mm-hmm. And still is only less than $2 million away from taking that number 1 spot again. I think, the theaters, I think, just made the wrong choice with Raya and the Last Dragon, in my opinion. And
I agree.
Or whether it's, their contract with Disney, whatever. But again, no one was looking forward to Tom and Jerry, and it's still raking all this money in. Raya and the Last Dragon was very much looking. What's that?
It's cute.
It's a movie. $6.62 million. Any other thoughts on Jerry and Tom and Jerry?
No.
Chaos Walking. Remember this movie that we saw a trailer for 7 years ago? $3.83 million for Chaos Walking. The YA, I believe it's a book. I assume it's based on a book with Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley.
Yep.
$3.83 million. This is a good number for this movie that no one wanted to see.
This is Lionsgate being Lionsgate. That's what it is. Lionsgate going, what YA dystopian future or weird book thing can we try to pump the movie out for, and drop the ball miserably on this one.
Let's find the 2 hottest stars that we can find at this time and put them in this YA adaptation, and then we'll just forget about it because this first movie sucked, which is the trend for YA movies after Hunger Games.
Oh my gosh, funny.
No, that's what I'm saying. Lionsgate. I mean, this is straight up Lionsgate. Hunger Games, Twilight, the Divergent series.
The Detergent series that they forgot to finish.
Oh, they didn't forget. They just realized that we need to move on to a different title. We're going to be better with that new title, and then we get Chaos Walking.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good number for it, though. Again, there's nothing in the theaters. It knocks Mr. Neeson out of the box office, which...
Oh, he'll be back with Taken 98.
Oh, he'll be back with Taken on a Buggy. So I can't wait for that. But number 4 is not Buggy, Boogie. $1.2 million. Never heard of this movie.
No.
Again,
I didn't hear about this movie until Derek said he was going to it.
Yeah, I've never heard of this movie. $1.2 million. It is its first weekend out. So again, nothing in the box office. It's either for adults. It's should we go watch this movie, Boogie, or Chaos Walking?
Yeah,
this movie. So the Boogie 1.2, and then rounding out the top 5, the movie that will not die, The Croods: A New Age. $780,000.
Isn't this the first time it's been below $1 million since it came out Thanksgiving?
No, I think it dipped. I think it dipped below. Like it's just been fluctuating in our top 5 since then.
It's just a little doing its thing.
It's Nick Cage. You can't get rid of the.
You can't get rid of the cage.
He'll keep fluctuating in quality, but you can't get rid of the cage.
Right.
It's bizarre though, because the first Croods came out forever ago. I don't understand how they then made a sequel now. And
2013.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
I think so. Jeez.
2013. But the funny thing is it may have been a few years, but it's not like The Croods was a bad movie that they finally made a sequel off of.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of on the same lines of it's a sequel that should have happened a long time ago. Just like The Incredibles had a sequel that should have happened a long time ago.
Right.
It's just good to see that, at least, it, even being 7 years later, almost 8 years later, that at least it was, being able to say, hey, you know what? We can still make a good movie, even though nobody remembers who the Croods are.
Right. Yeah. And at least it's not like Toy Story 7 or something where they've had so many other sequels that it's like,
I'll take Toy Story 7.
I know.
We got to get to Toy Story 5 first, Casey.
I'll take all of them. Give me all the Toy Stories. Give me the weird Buzz Lightyear thing they're doing. I'll take it all. Give me Buzz Lightyear of Star Command again.
I just need another Duke Kaboom Keanu Reeves. That's what I need.
Let's Duke Kaboom out of the box office and go to the news for this week. Brian, what do we got for the news?
I'm going to see if I can pronounce this last name correctly because I'm going to butcher it. Cynthia Erivo and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Yes, Joseph Gordon-Levitt to join Robert Zemeckis' Pinocchio for Disney.
Cynthia Erivo.
Erivo? Mm-hmm. Sure. I know. I was actually looking at like her filmography and whatnot. I'm like, I've got the two movies that pop up right away is Widows and Bad Times at El Royale. Two movies I own and have never watched yet. I was like, I know her from somewhere. But and the fact that she's from Harriet and whatnot. But they have. I don't remember what they said that she is supposed to be for, but I know that Joseph Gordon-Levitt is supposed to be
Jiminy Cricket.
Jiminy Cricket, yes. Which, I'm definitely intrigued by that idea.
I think it's great. He kind of looks like Jiminy Cricket.
Well,
he's got that weird little head. I
hope it's just a tiny Joseph Gordon-Levitt that shows up next to Tom Hanks.
We don't need him to look like a. We don't need him to look like a grasshopper. We don't. Yeah, exactly. Grasshopper. We don't even we just need a small little version of Joseph Gordon-Levitt just walking around. I want a top hat, cane, everything. Like he needs to look like freaking like Frank Sinatra.
Yes. And I don't even think we need a small version of him. I think he is a small version of him. So we're good. We're good to go. Yeah.
Are you guys excited for this movie, for Pinocchio from Mr. Bobby Zemeckis and Mr. America's Dad, Tom Hanks?
Well, yeah, I was excited when I heard Tom Hanks is going to be Gepetto. It's like, okay, I'm in. I'll watch it.
Yeah. I'll need to start at least. This is probably one of those things that maybe I would ignore the previews and whatnot, but maybe see what like the stills give me and whatnot.
Right.
Just because I am one of those people that is, I enjoyed The Witches, but it was definitely a different take. It was, there were rough patches about it, but this, Zemeckis has done very well with Tom Hanks. Sully was fantastic, but this is a different beast. So I think I'm going to be more of I need to see more before I get 100% behind this one.
I'm glad that it's not animated because I don't like his animated ones. So,
well, neither was The Witches, but there was enough animation in it.
This is that Disney live action remake, though, and I mean, Mr. Bobby Zemeckis has been very hit and miss on his CGI as of late. It's a little dodgy, a little weird. Maybe that'll work for this. This isn't the Pinocchio movie I'm looking forward to, though. I'm waiting for that Guillermo del Toro one to finally come out. The stop.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
Yeah, but I mean, can you go wrong with Tom Hanks as Gepetto? No, you can't. So
again, Pinocchio's dad is being played by America's dad. Like, right. I mean, and he doesn't, and for the most part, it's hard for Tom Hanks to put on a terrible performance, no matter what he's given.
Right.
I think you just bring back Jonathan Taylor Thomas as Pinocchio, though, in this. And so we can have maybe a pseudo sequel to his Pinocchio movie from the 90s.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No, because as much as people don't remember the Croods before Croods 2 came out, nobody remembers that Pinocchio, Casey.
Oh, but everybody remembers JTT, though.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think people remember Jonathan Taylor Thomas, but, maybe.
Hey, when he showed up at Last Man Standing, I'm like, yes!
Yeah.
See, all the moms that are going to take their kids to watch Pinocchio and be like, hey, that Pinocchio guy, I had his picture hanging on my wall from all those teen magazines when I was a kid.
That's right.
So that's how you get the parents in.
I like how you're like all the moms that take their kids. That nothing like feeling like you're dating me in terms of age. Like,
right.
I'm just telling the truth here, man. I'm just don't hurt the messenger. It's just the truth.
I will hurt the messenger. All right, I'm going to move on to this terrible piece of news that you're just probably all looking forward to, Casey. Silent Night, Deadly Night reboot coming from Black Hanger Studio, because most people in general don't care. And I see the look on Lou's face too, like, why are we talking about this?
I don't know what any of those words mean. Yeah.
Hey, neither do I.
Yay!
So we'll let Casey like fanboy over this so we can move on.
It's garbage day, guys. Yeah, Silent Night, Deadly Night has like 5-6 movies already with a reboot already has happened, just called I believe it's just called Silent Night. But yeah, it's already had a remake, so no surprise that they are trying to dip into this well, like Halloween is, and Candyman, and Scream. So all these other ones from the 80s, all these slasher franchises are getting a reboot. So why not dip your toes into this? The Black Hanger Studio is the same studio doing the new Jeepers Creepers movie. So I think they're sticking in what properties can we pick up and maybe try to adapt for a new audience now, probably at a very low budget with probably no theatrical screening for these straight to video type of movies. So I don't know, give me more straight to video bad sequels to horror movies. I'm all for it.
Just put it on Shudder so you don't have to pay extra for it.
I'll pay the extra for it. If it's a bad sequel, I'll take it.
All right, so on to better news than that. We get our first look at LeBron James and Bugs Bunny in Space Jam: A New Legacy, which this is one of those ones where I'm definitely looking forward to it. I agree with Blake when he brought it up here the other day. I find it absolutely hilarious that Lola Bunny was trending on Twitter because of all of this. Like, everybody is coming out of the woodwork about how Lola Bunny looks different. Like, it's also how many years later we need to update characters.
I also didn't notice that she looked any different. I don't know. I'm like, what was really different? She's not wearing a crop top jersey. She has a long jersey and longer shorts. Is that what it was?
Yeah, and I think from what I could tell from some of the pictures, she's more of a fawn than a straight like white bunny kind of thing. It's the only other thing I can think of. But no, you're absolutely correct. She doesn't have like the atypical, cosplay that everybody knows nowadays kind of thing for Lola Bunny. It's like big deal,
Right.
But
all you weirdos on the internet, quit gawking at Lola Bunny and her midriff. Like, just stop. Be thankful we're getting a Space Jam sequel, people.
Right. And you can find somebody online to make some weird fan art for you if you're really missing out on it. So
right, exactly.
Guarantee there is some out there with like Lola Bunny and LeBron James somewhere. I'm sure that's out there. But yeah, I'm excited for this movie. Obviously, I love Space Jam growing up. But seeing an updated version of it, sure, why not? I rewatched Space Jam maybe a year or two ago. It's not a good movie, guys. It's pretty bad, but it is also so much fun, and it is pure 90s nostalgia.
Right.
I was gonna say it's by far not an Academy Award winning, very well written, your basketball players you can tell are not actors kind of thing, but you know what? It's just good fun.
Right. And LeBron James is like the person, like he's like the person that it could be, because you think of it had to be somebody that's Michael Jordan like quality, and so since he exists, this is the time.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you. I mean, if you need to find somebody who can basically fill the shoes of Michael Jordan for that aspect of it and whatnot,
right,
you probably have the biggest person, on the planet to do this here. And at least he does have previous acting before he making this movie. And from what I've heard, because I've never actually seen any of these set pieces and whatnot, he actually is pretty good. So maybe we'll get a better Space Jam.
Who knows? I mean, from what we saw in these, images that were released, I mean, it looks like they're going full like Lego Batman, introducing the entire Warner archive into this movie in some way, shape, or form. I mean, that was teased a few months ago that, oh, hey, look, the Joker's in this and Pennywise and.
Those were all.
Those
were fake images,
and those were fake. And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, someone's just trolling the internet." Well, you look at this picture. There is probably a Joker in the background. There looks like a King Kong in the background. Those images might not have been too far off of what is actually happening in this movie.
Maybe.
So I do think we are going to get a lot of. Maybe, I don't know if there'll be a lot of cameos, but we'll probably get a lot of characters that are in that Warner archive. And I'm excited about this. I'm excited to see a new Space Jam. I don't need to see this in the theater. I'm glad this is one of those Warner Brothers HBO Max releases. Yeah. I can watch Space Jam: A New Legacy at home. Hopefully this just leads to those sequels that they pitched back when the first Space Jam came out, including Race Jam and Skate Jam. Please make those happen, Warner Brothers. Have you guys heard about these?
No.
You and I have talked about those, but that was a long time ago.
Race Jam was supposed to be like Space Jam, but with NASCAR.
My gosh.
Jeff Gordon would be the lead. Obviously, acclaimed actor Jeff Gordon. And Skate Jam, obviously, there's only one person.
Tony Hawk.
Tony Hawk. Yeah. So, yeah, let's make these happen. Give us a wrestle jam with John Cena. Give us like a baseball one with like Bryce Harper. I don't care. Give us all the sports.
The wrestling one actually sounds fine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that probably would have some of the strongest acting because that's what they do on a daily basis.
Right. That's true.
Bring The Rock in, bring Cena in. Like this would be like that'd be like the first movie to actually be able to get both of the big time actors out of WWE into one film.
The Rock's not doing a Space Jam movie.
I could totally
better than that.
I totally, especially for the sake of the love for his kids, I could totally see The Rock doing doing a Wrestle Jam type movie. I could totally see that happening. This dude sings for Moana. He would do Space Jam.
That's true. Yeah.
Anyway, Disney animated movies I do not compare to Space Jam. I'm sorry. Is that it?
That is it. That's all that we have for the news. That is it. It's been kind of a light day. It would have been lighter, but you had to bring up, bad horror movies.
Yeah, I mean, if it's that light on news, we got to talk about Silent Night, Deadly Night. But we're not going to talk about that today because we're going to continue versus month here. We're talking The People versus Larry Flynt from 1996. We're going to throw it off to professional wrestling announcer Charlie Eccles, who is going to give us a nice introduction to The People versus Larry Flynt.
Welcome to Backlot 605. Are you ready for your main event of the evening? First, in this corner, the pervert of publication, Larry Flint. And his opponent is everyone, the people, all of you. He's going up against all of you. Let's podcast.
All right, let's throw down The People versus Larry Flynt. Thank you so much, Mr. Charlie Eccles, for that awesome introduction. So
I think we just need to have Charlie do our intros just period from now on. Like he just needs to do them all.
He does a great job. He is pretty good at that announcing thing. He must do it pretty often.
It must be like it's a job for him.
So let's jump into this movie, 1996, The People versus Larry Flynt. So this is about the creator of Hustler magazine, Larry Flynt, played by Woody Harrelson, and how he basically becomes this figure of defending, free speech, public speech, and goes up against basically the right to, people censoring him. Also stars Courtney Love, Edward Norton, James Cromwell in this star-studded cast, and a favorite of Mr. Brian Mensing's, I'm sure, Crispin Glover with a lazy eye.
God, I love that. He's just the whole time just like.
I bet that wasn't even in the script. That was just him requesting it. He's like,
Yes.
I need to have a lazy eye in this. Why? I just do. Because I'm a weirdo.
It's either that or the person really did have the lazy eye type of thing, and they're like, who in Hollywood would do that and be like, bring it on? Be like, go get Crispin Glover.
I like to think he just suggested it because he is a weirdo.
He's such a weirdo.
Now you got me curious.
I bet he did. But yeah, let's jump into this movie. This was a first time watch for myself. It's been on my watch list for a very long time, and we came up with Versus. This was one that was like, well, that's one we could do if we're not just going to watch monsters punch each other in the face. Let's watch Woody Harrelson. You're welcome for yourself. I will watch monsters punch each other in the face all day, every day. But I will also watch Woody Harrelson sit in a wheelchair and argue with the Supreme Court too. Yeah, this was a first time watch for me. What about you guys? Is this a first time watch, rewatch for you guys?
Yes.
Well,
first time.
Yes.
I like that you're like, it's either one or the other. Coffee or decaf? Yes, please.
Yes, so much. Yes.
Yes. This was the first time watch for me as well, and I don't know. Maybe it was just political dramas were not my thing in '96 when this thing came out. I was a junior in high school, so this wasn't what I was probably watching back then, kind of thing. That was let's go watch Independence Day, stuff like that.
Although there's a lot of boobs, so I would think that some teenagers saw it quite a few times. So
right.
There's that.
They're like, let's go watch Courtney Love get naked.
Yeah, right. And then we can watch this movie because I bet she just gets naked for people. It's fine.
No, not Courtney. No, never her. She'd never do anything like that. That's just crazy.
She's real classy. Yeah.
So much sarcasm. Maybe we'll start with her then, because she is one of the standouts, whether good or bad, that she's in this movie. What were your guys' thoughts on her performance, her character? Basically, her just I don't know, her character that just goes through this complete transformation that we see unfold throughout this movie. What were your guys' thoughts on her character playing Larry Flint's wife?
I think for the sake of, like, you look at the end of the movie and you feel like that feels like how Courtney Love was at the time. So it's almost like the beginning of it is more of the character. Like, she's clean. She's, relatively level-headed. They're very much a open type couple and whatnot, but she seemed relatively like quote unquote normal at the beginning and whatnot, and to have a really interesting story arc to her to basically showing the downfall of her after Larry gets shot. She starts, realizing what the drugs can do for her.
Mm-hmm. I loved her. I thought she was really great in this movie. I felt like, I think she plays the part of Althea so well because it's a lot of, she's able to draw on her own personal experience, but that doesn't negate the fact that she does a really good job. She looks really good. And she definitely, her performance is kind of effortless, which is cool. It doesn't feel like she's trying really hard or anything like that. And I kind of got this vibe from the movie that it is kind of a warts and all sort of a movie where they're showing, they're glossing over stuff. They're making it cinematic. They're simplifying complicated relationships and things like that. But they are at least being somewhat realistic in that their relationship is real messed up, and she's real messed up, and he's real messed up. And how it kind of ends with him watching that old video. I feel like that's kind of a very romantic thought, because for a I don't know, they really try to drive home that there's a lot of love in this messed up, crazy little world that they have. And so I did kind of appreciate that. It's not like a romance film, but there was some love there, and they do really highlight that, and I think she just does a really good job. Without her, I'm not sure I would have loved this movie. I think she was super vital in making me really like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think she's kind of in a way, the through line of this movie of a character that we can sort of relate to, because she's not the main character, Larry Flint, who is kind of this big brash ego in this movie, you know, just especially when he enters the courtroom, just giving zero F's in the courtroom at all. And she's kind of the character by his side the entire time, and the one that we get to follow. And I think the one that, at least for me, has maybe the most character arc in this movie, and it's not a good one either.
No.
It's, you know, we see her, you know, deteriorate throughout this movie, and it's really a sad thing to watch a character like this go through that, and one that we're supposed to be following and sort of rooting for in a way. And yeah, I think Courtney Love is really good in this movie. Like we said, she's probably not playing something too far from what she has experienced in her own life. How early on is this in her film career? I think it's pretty early on, if
I
I'm
think
not
so
mistaken.
too.
I'll pull it up here, but
they're pretty much almost like towards the beginning, I would assume.
let's see.
And I would definitely say that Larry Flint like ruined her life. And I think that's kind of interesting that they showed it. That she wouldn't have been in a lot of these situations, not to say that she wouldn't have been a drug addict or died of an overdose, but his lifestyle really funneled her towards these life decisions.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
From what I can see, basically, she had 3 movies come out in '96. This was pretty much her introduction into Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, if this is your first performance, again, like a lot of people who are already in the celebrity status, you play something that you know already. So if she's jumping into Hollywood this way, I think that's a perfect introduction for her. I mean, I think she's really great in some other movies that she would appear in, and one we'll talk about too is, Man on the Moon, because there's direct connections to that movie in many ways here. Basically, this entire team, aside from Woody Harrelson, is in that movie. So we'll definitely have to talk.
Okay, that's something I did not know.
Have to talk about that, including writers, directors, tons of actors. So we'll talk about Man on the Moon a little bit. But yeah, I think another thing I do want to touch on is the writers for this movie, because the writers are, I'm going to butcher this guy's last name, Scott Alexander and Larry Karazeski.
Sure.
But basically, these guys are kind of the go-to guys in Hollywood if you want to write a biopic, because they did this, Ed Wood, Man on the Moon. They also did, what was the other one? Big Eyes, and Dolomite Is My Name. So if you want to go to guys that are going to do this, real life adaptation of real life events, these seem to be the guys to go to for those. And at least for me, tonally wise,
they got history degrees.
Maybe. But as far as like tonally wise, this movie pretty much lines up with what they're doing in like Man on the Moon and Ed Wood, and Dolomite Is My Name too. It really does line up with those, and they all feel like they do kind of exist in the same world that these writers have created, that basically gives us the, I don't want to say Hollywood version, but a condensed version of basically someone's entire life in a way.
Right. I think that's pretty fair. I mean, those are very interesting, movies to be all written by the same, writing team and whatnot, because there is a lot of variety in those people, but to be able to have good, solid films in at that same time, because, like I think of like Dolomite versus Larry Flint, like those are two, they're both out there people, but they're not anywhere near the same kind of individuals.
No, and I think that's what this team does really well is taking all these different individuals and making it into a digestible 1.5, 2 hour long version of their life, and what are the specifics we do want to follow in their life and hit on the big things. For me, this one is probably the weakest of their group, because I feel this movie is kind of like wishy-washy in where we follow, because for me, there's a point I do want to talk about. I want to get your guys' thoughts on it. It's when he meets up with Jimmy Carter's sister, and basically has one conversation with this woman in this movie, and is like, I'm a Christian now. Guess what? We are a Christian porn magazine. I'm like, what? What happened? What did I miss? Is there something that, did we have scenes cut? What happened? What were your
He
guys?
he got baptized and found God.
Better baptism scene in Ed Wood. But yeah, what do you guys think of his transformation there? Or for me, it's a lack thereof a transformation.
Well, I thought it was more maybe like kind of highlighting Larry's personality of kind of being like super duper into things and then not. I think he was just thirsty or hungry for something that came along. He held on to it and was like, this actually doesn't really work for me. So never mind. If God's not going to like directly answer my prayers, I'm not interested. Right. And so I think it was more that where he was somebody that didn't have religion. And then so he kind of got excited by it, but then realized it couldn't really do anything for him. So let's just go back to what we were doing.
I think it is also a matter of the idea of she reached out to him. So, where she, because he's used to the idea of everybody in the church, everything like that, thinking that he's doing the devil's work and stuff like that. And the fact that, he must be condemned. So he doesn't think of religion the same way until someone's like, you and I have similar values, but we're coming from different, and to the point where he's all of a sudden like, oh, well, wait a minute. Maybe this religion thing isn't what I think it is, until he gets knee deep into it when he's realized, all right, this isn't my world's, these aren't cohesive.
Right. Well, to reference Man in the Moon, there's that really great scene where Andy Kaufman goes to that healer person that does that quote unquote surgery. And it's like, crap. Like you realize once you're in it that it's just a joke. And so, yeah, I think you're totally right, Brian, where he like got into it and then it's just like, nah, never mind.
Yeah, I could have used just like one scene in between there of him just saying why he's doing this. Really,
right?
Like I just needed a little bit of an explanation from him to kind of explicitly say it. Because for me, on the other half of it, when he leaves, it's like, yeah, that's pretty crystal clear why he left.
Right?
After he's shot and is paralyzed, it's like, all right, I get it now.
Yeah, a lot of people would lose faith after that kind of an event, right? Especially with his lifestyle, and then to not be able to, have sex. That probably sucked. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess that's not great.
Yeah. So on that other half, I felt like it was very explicit. I could have used a little bit more of even just a Hollywood like explanation of why he's doing this.
I would almost say, just for the sake of like trying to keep for the sake of time in the movie, is there probably would have been enough time towards the beginning of the film that you could have maybe, shaved a few little bits of it down, like during the meeting while they're showing like for instance, like the party, where they're being very promiscuous and stuff like that, where you probably could have shaved a little bit down so you could fit something like that in, just because at that point, if you're adding too much in there, then you're getting a 2.5 hour movie. And I don't think anybody's like, I'm going to go watch 2.5 hours of Larry Flint.
No. But I mean, the last biopic we talked about was 3.5 hours long. So, I mean, we could have added a 5-minute scene in here.
But this is about Larry Flint. So I think you really
Are you saying Larry Flint is no Malcolm X?
Yeah, I am actually saying that.
He's the Malcolm X of fighting for your right to read porn.
Well, and
you're not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's broader than that too. I mean, he was fighting for a lot of our rights, and I think that's cool too, because I don't have to agree with who he was or what his business was to agree with what he was fighting for, which is
freedom of speech.
Yeah,
I mean, it literally boils down to freedom of speech, which I agree with you, is the fact that I don't necessarily. It's the thing. It's like, I don't necessarily read his work, the stuff that, because he, at the time he passed away, he had like 30 publications and whatnot. I'm not reading that stuff. I don't necessarily agree with all the stuff, whatever the case is, but the fact that he took it all the way to the Supreme Court to basically say, I'm fighting for the fact that I don't want to be censored. You can't argue what he did for the First Amendment. as an individual, he was just the unorthodox, black sheep that basically put everybody on their ear.
Absolutely. And it's still coming up today. I mean, we still have to fight for the freedom of speech. And it's a very American thing that we need to make sure that we remember that we fought for this since the beginning. And we're just used to having like such a cush, awesome situation where our newspapers and publications do have a ton of freedom. There's plenty of places in the world that currently are censored, and that would suck. I mean, and so we're like super duper in a great place, but it's because of people like Larry Flint. So that we still have these freedoms, and so that's kind of cool.
And one thing you guys brought up was that, people not agreeing with his stance on, certain things, but agreeing wholeheartedly on freedom of speech. And that is that's Edward Norton's character in this movie, who I think he's really great in this movie too. I think
he's great in everything. Yeah.
Usually.
Speaking of Ed Norton, I just want to point out that this came out, this is the kind of thing where I think he should have gotten nominated for an award for this performance, but at that point then he would have been nominated in the same category twice, because this is the same year he got nominated for Primal Fear.
Oh, that would have been cool though.
I know. I that's what I think would be like, and you just got nominated twice. So I'm hoping that maybe the reason why he didn't get nominated for this, because I do really think he did a fantastic job, is the fact that they're like, okay, well, we can't put you in the category twice, so we're going to give you Primal Fear, which he is absolutely amazing in.
I do think that would be, fun. If I don't know if the Oscars is ever, I think they have, well, maybe not in the same category nominated the same person.
Like you see
Scarlett Johansson was nominated supporting and best actress last year, so it'd be interesting to see, especially like with something like the Golden Globes. I would see them doing that. And I mean, this movie did have a lot of award consideration for the three actors here were all in award consideration. Harrelson and Courtney Love were nominated for at least Golden Globes. I think Harrelson was nominated for actor at the Oscars too.
Yeah, he was.
He lost to The English Patient.
That cinematic classic that we still talk about in 2020, The English Patient. It's the King's Speech of the 90s.
I think it was that. At least, if anything, that was the one that he was in contention with.
Mm-hmm. And well, I do want to touch on some of the awards after this, because this is the same year Fargo came out, and it's like, yeah, that was the one again. Anyway, not talking about the Oscars. We're not an Oscars podcast. But back to the movie, People versus Larry Flint. Is there any other parts you guys want to touch on? I do want to touch on the cameo that we talked about beforehand too.
Yes. And I think
the absolutely amazing cameo, like one of the few instances where I got to chuckle in this movie.
Yeah.
I chuckled for the wrong reasons, I think.
That's because you didn't know who it was.
No, that doesn't. I still would have laughed at the bad. Let's talk. Let's talk.
I don't know how this makes me feel, knowing the fact that you didn't recognize the cameo right away because you didn't know who Larry Flint was. I don't know if this was my age or what, but as soon as he was on screen, I knew exactly who that was. I'm like, I don't know if this makes me feel better or worse about myself. Like, should I know what Larry Flint looks like?
Right. But his sound, though. I mean, he has such a distinct voice.
Yep.
That's hard to ignore.
Yep.
So during one of the courtroom scenes in which Harrelson, his Larry Flint is on the stand, the judge for said courtroom scene is real life Larry Flint, who you guys got a chuckle out of. I don't know who Larry Flint is besides this movie. I've never heard of him besides this, the People versus Larry Flint. And this guy utters a few words, and I'm like, this dude needs some acting lessons. It is not good.
You are absolutely correct. He was a little rough, but the part I found absolutely amazing about the fact that if you're going to have a cameo in your movie and being the person that you are, that Larry Flint was, the fact that he was playing a judge
Right.
who was opposing to what he believed in and whatnot. I do think gives a lot of credit to him telling his own story. Because, he could have been, if he's going to cameo in his own movie, he could have played anybody that was in support of, what he was doing and whatnot. But in this instance, he's literally playing a character, playing a person who basically is like, screw you, you're an evil individual that should be, shut down. So I give him mad props that the fact that he can't act. There's no doubt about that. But to play that type of role in this film, I think was a very smart move.
Yeah, well, and he's being reprimanded, like you said, by himself, and I think that is a really cool point for sure. And I think it also just goes to show his personality, which they're showing in the movie, that he's not afraid of being put under a microscope as long as you're willing to put yourself under one too. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I think it just seems like his personality to look at the hard things and be like, yeah, I want to do that. I'll do the hard part.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes out of this movie I do want to bring up too is Larry Flynt has this incredible speech.
Yes, that's the best part. Yes,
inside this arena where he's basically comparing what he is doing and what he's showing in his magazines to what we are seeing like on the news in war. He's comparing, our freedom of speech to war, and I think that's such a great comparison, great scene. Like that's, I don't know what scene they showed at the Oscars that year for this movie for Harrelson's nomination, but for me, that's the scene. Like that's the one to show.
Amazing. It was such a good part. I mean, I closed my eyes at some of those pictures that they showed. They're awful. So it's just a really good point where it's like, oh yeah, totally agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like what is more detrimental to your mental health? Looking at lewd pictures of women or whatever the case is, or looking at the dead bodies and the carnage that is of war that we partake in like it's nothing.
And I mean, a really huge part of it for me is, not to shock you guys, but I'm not super into porn. But I don't seek it out. So like a Hustler magazine isn't going to bother me because I don't own one. But those news images, you don't get a choice whether you see those. They just happen. You just turn on the TV and they're showing you awful things. And it's like, well, at least the other thing I had to like seek out to be offended by. So I'm not offended by it because I'm not seeking it out. I don't know. The news stuff, you just see it. It's just there. And that's pretty gross. And
that's another thing that at one point in this movie, Larry's on the stand and they basically bring up, what if, he's like, what, you don't have to read my magazine if you don't want to. You're choosing to pick it up and look at it.
Right.
And the opposite lawyer opposes with, what if a kid in a grocery store picks up one of your magazines and looks through it? And he says, well, what if a kid goes underage to a bar and drinks a beer? We're not going to ban, all alcohol because of that.
Right.
It's the same thing here. And I think that is another great comparison of, this is, again, it's people's right to choose in this case. And I mean, if, again, there should be repercussions of, having an age limit on things. But again, after that age, that's up to you what you choose to drink or put in your body, or what you like to look at, or what you would like to say too. And I think that's just such a great point and a great comparison to have between the two from Larry Flynt in that scene.
Oh, agreed.
And we're talking about a time where you really had to seek this stuff out. Nowadays, it's on your computer, it's on your phone, it's everywhere. So it's even just so much more available to anybody now. But back then, I mean, I don't think kids were just stumbling across stuff. Like, I think it's kind of a silly thing to think that like a kid would stumble across something and they see a hustler and it's going to ruin their life or something. It's like, no, they're just going to look at it. They're a kid. They don't know what they're looking at exactly.
Oh, they know what they're looking at.
They're just hiding it from mom inside like Time magazine or something.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I will certainly say is because before these things became a huge part of publication and whatnot, is just getting into the point where it can be at least controlled in knowing that you're of an age that you should be purchasing it. Right. Before then, you could just literally go to the newsstand and whatever and just pull it off. You could be any age just to get your hands on it. So, But the fact that you're hindering someone like you said, you're of age, you are whatever the case is. If you want to read that stuff, go read that stuff. You're not hurting me.
Right.
One part I do want to touch on with you guys is the opening of this movie, and then we do get a closing with it too. Is Larry Flint's brother in this? Because for me, that's an untapped potential of this movie that I don't think we get enough of in it. Because
Get enough Jimmy.
We don't get enough of him. I don't know a whole lot about him by the end of this movie. But he's in this entire movie. We open with him. We open with the two brothers having their own business when they are kids, selling moonshine. Like that's their business as a kid. And then we see them, they both own this strip club, and then now they own Hustler magazine together. They're doing all this stuff together. I think that is, a great thing to touch on this brother relationship. What did you guys think of, Larry Flint's brother in this movie? And I don't know, did you guys get enough of him? Could you used a little more, like myself?
Well, the first thing I will certainly say is that I think the very, very beginning with the moonshine side of things, like it was completely unnecessary. Like you could have literally started the movie in the strip club or the go-go bar, whatever they want to call it and whatnot. I think that was completely unnecessary because in fact, when I rented it on my Xbox to watch this and whatnot, I immediately thought was like, is my Xbox screwed up and I rented the wrong thing?
I know. Is this Bagger Vance or something? What's happening?
Yeah,
I don't know.
For that aspect of it. So, I just want to bring that up just because I think the opening was completely unnecessary.
I agree with you. And I think it's because we don't spend enough time in that era either.
Right.
It's either cut that or spend a little more time there. One or the other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which I think cutting it, you would have lost absolutely nothing. I don't think you would have lost anything in terms of the brotherly thing with him and Jimmy. If anything, if you would have cut that, you could have you could have embellished more on the things that you said that you didn't get enough of in terms of Carter or Jimmy or anything like that. Like those minutes could have been used for something else. And you know what? And you're absolutely right. If you would have given him more as the adult of what is he doing, what is he working on while Larry's in jail, whatever the case is, I think would have proved to be more substantial than seeing them as kids selling moonshine.
And that's what feels like the biopic aspect of, well, we got to touch on every piece of this guy's life. What was his childhood like? Sometimes that doesn't matter. Sometimes we just need to focus on that, maybe 10-year part of his life. And that's all we need to focus on for this movie. Yeah.
It's like in terms of like a superhero movie, you don't have to go over the origin. You can just start in the middle, and I think this would be one where if they would have just started, basically at the club, you would have been fine.
Right. So is it really Woody Harrelson's brother playing, or is it brothers playing brothers?
That's a good question. I don't remember.
I think it is.
I'm going to look it up.
Is his, brother also related to Matthew McConaughey? Because he sounds exactly
He sounds just like him. Yes. Like I was, it 100% dead on. Sounds exactly like him.
Yeah. When he first comes up, I'm like,
me too. Yeah.
Is Matthew McConaughey in this one?
Yep. I grab my phone, look it up. I'm like, oh, okay.
and yes, that is his real life brother.
So I don't think that happens a ton. I can't think of another movie where you have brothers playing brothers. So that's kind of cool.
And if we would have spent more time with him, maybe we could have got Matthew McConaughey in this role. That would have been cool, seeing him and Harrelson be brothers in this.
Right.
Yeah, I think they're besties, so it would have been neat.
Harrelson, though, is fantastic in this movie.
He's great.
I was a little lukewarm on him at first in this movie. I'm like, oh, he's good. And then when you get through the transformation of his character, after he gets shot and is paralyzed, I'm like, all right, that's the transformation. That's where it's like, all right, give this guy his Oscar nomination already.
Right.
That's it. And he introduces, he has a different voice here in the second half too, and does a great job at that. Woody Harrelson is just, he's so good in this movie. Again, hard to find a bad performance from Harrelson.
I would just like to point out the fact that who would have thought how many decades ago that the Woody from Cheers would be the Woody of what we have today.
No
Like,
way.
I remember watching the show when I was a kid and whatnot. Like, he's the goofy, dorky guy, whatever the case is. And then we get outstanding performances like this.
I totally agree. From Cheers to this, it's kind of mind-boggling. And his performance in The People versus Larry Flint is great. You see him, like you said, with the voice changing, like that was cool that it wasn't like immediate, and it just kind of, he like disintegrates into this person. It's great.
And I do like how they show that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say is the fact that, being that you didn't know who Larry Flint was prior to watching this here, Casey, is the fact that the inflection in his voice when he does become more of the version that we knew, before he passed and whatnot, that voice like that Harrelson pulls off is pretty spot on. Like, I mean, that's how Larry Flint sounded. And obviously, as you saw the judge, there's a reason why they sound very similar. And at least, it's good the fact that, he played a judge early on before Larry's voice changed so that we didn't have him sounding like himself.
Right.
I was going to say, I love the passage of time that we get in this movie. We're in the bedroom with, Larry Flint and his wife, and we had the door shut, and you just see like 5 years pass by in rapid fashion, and the door finally opens back up. And yeah, there is a transformation from both of our characters that we're following here. Like, Larry Flint has a voice transformation. I mean, Courtney Love is something.
Yeah.
That is one hell of a body transformation. I mean,
yeah.
She looks, and that's one thing I was going to say about that, for the sake of like the makeup and costume and stuff like that. She looked like she was dying by the end of that movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's unraveled completely.
Mm-hmm. And Ed Norton plays a magnificent lawyer. Like, you just put him in a suit and he just looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Do you guys have any other things you'd like to bring up? Any behind the scenes histories or any other thoughts on the movie?
I definitely think that, they, for it being a biopic, for it being a real Supreme Court case and all those things, I mean, I think they did a really good job of, while they are glossing over things and blurring things a little bit, they did kind of keep it about as real as you would want it to be, for it to be a watchable, enjoyable, entertaining film. And I think it is all of those things. I also think they do a great job. And actually, Larry Flint himself, if you watch old interviews with him, he does a great job of, he's very charismatic. He's intelligent. The way that he talks and explains things makes sense to me. And I don't agree with him on a lot of stuff, but I totally get where he's coming from. And it's hard to not agree with, protecting our freedoms and making sure that everybody gets to grow up in that like cool America where we do get to express ourselves. And, we live in a time where there's still a lot of like bills and things that could possibly at some point give us a lot of censorship on the internet. And like, that's kind of something to think about. And I was really surprised that when he died, which was just a couple weeks ago, that there wasn't really a ton said about it.
No, it was very, just one of those ones where it's like, yep, Larry Flint has passed away, and then that was it and whatnot. Nothing literally about, it's almost like his what he did, overshadowed what he was doing was overshadowing what he was able to accomplish.
Right.
Like, people are just be like, oh, Larry Flint, oh, the guy behind the porno magazine.
Guy. Right.
Let's ignore the fact that he and his lawyer, who was pretty much a very green lawyer at the time he took over for him or whatever, gets to go up against the Supreme Court and gets a unanimous decision that they favor, the porn guy,
Right.
that says a whole lot of not only for him, what he was able to accomplish, what his lawyer was able to accomplish, because I mean, it was nice being able to see that scene of the bantering between Ed Norton and the judges to be able to say, hey, again, you don't agree with everything he does here, but you agree with the fact that what he's trying to do. Like when they bring up the George Washington political cartoon from the 1700s, this is stuff that hasn't changed in 300 years. It's just a matter of what we need to say is okay to do and not okay to do.
Absolutely. And I watched an interview with Larry Flint, and he talked about how this court case, this Supreme Court case, kind of protected like something that I didn't even think of, which is SNL, like when they do a political skit or something like that, and they're using real people and they're saying nasty stuff, and they're not getting sued because you can't sue them because of this court case. And so there's all these ways that it's been applied into kind of our daily lives that I don't think we realize. And again, I just found it to be odd that he wasn't talked about when he died to the level that I thought maybe it deserved. And it does feel like it's directly related to the fact that he sold porn. So,
agreed.
And it's odd because you have awful people running huge companies that will be celebrated when they die, but it's not porn, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's why it was interesting timing, is the fact that we had selected this movie to do this movie for this month, and it just ironically becomes topical. Is the fact that we talk about him in the past sense. It's like I agree. It's like more people need to understand that about that aspect of some people may be dirtbags, but they can still do good. You can still have the dirtbag who is still a dirtbag by the time he dies and whatnot, but is getting honored because he's not selling porno.
Right. Well, I remember there was a news story like 5 or 6 years ago, probably longer, I don't know. Some porn star woman was reading books for kids at a school somewhere. And she did it like once a month or something for some reading program. And one of the parents there recognized her as being a porn star. And so they caused a big stink about it. And then she wasn't allowed to do it anymore. And what confused me about that story is, well, a couple things. The fact that you know who she is your problem, not hers. She was just doing her job and you were doing your job. So just keep that to yourself. Nobody cares. Also, she sounds like a really nice person because I don't read books to kids. So. Right.
Exactly. It's not like she was bringing it into the school.
No.
Life was separate. Job versus what she was doing, for the Scholastic program. You're absolutely correct. But it definitely lands on the fact, like what you said, though, is that, I recognize so-and-so. Tell me why you recognize me. Exactly. Who's the dirty one here? The one who is recognizing me, or the fact that, that's my job, but my job is out there, not in here.
Right. Yeah. And so Larry Flint was creating content, and, the content might not be content that I enjoy, but it doesn't affect me because I'm not consuming that content. So, and then he did a lot of really cool things too. And so I don't think that should be diminished just because his job was different than what my standards like.
Yeah. And he has a great moment in here too, where he's like, yeah, I'm an asshole and I'm I might be a bad person, but I'm fighting for you guys to say whatever you want to say, like for your freedom of speech. Like you might not like me, but you should like what I am fighting for. That's what the real thing is here. And
to the point where it's almost like, I may be an asshole, but I'm being an asshole for you.
Right.
Because he was doing things and saying things that he knew other people wouldn't, just so that way he can get the topic brought up, to the fact that he would be able to be like, hey, there's a reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I need to basically be the ringling, the center ring clown in order for us to be able to keep these rights.
I pulled up the box office numbers. This is something I want to kind of throw out to you guys, like opening weekend.
The total of $43 million they made worldwide for the $30 million box. I was meaning to bring this up. This definitely would have been a box office failure.
Right.
Yeah, and again, a political drama with the people versus Larry Flint with an award consideration around it. Probably not going to break the box office.
Mhm.
So, I mean, this is probably what was to be expected for this movie.
The one thing I will, and I think I know how, and I see how this worked or whatever, because when I looked at the numbers, it was internationally, it did better than, domestically and whatnot. And I see this as a couple reasons, is the fact that, number one, people overseas would be like, oh, so this is what all these weird Americans are doing. Or, why are these weird Americans fighting, that sort of thing, whatever the case is. But at the same time, too, like Lou alluded to, is some of the censorships overseas, that sort of thing. These people want to see things that are going on in the States here that are saying, okay, maybe I need to see what it is that is being censored or not being censored. Or like in certain countries overseas where it's like they're worried about a bunch of boobs. Like, yeah, like some countries overseas and whatnot, that's on the 5:00 news, and seeing a pair of boobs, that sort of thing, So I think that's one of the reasons why I think it did better overseas, is because they're looking to be like, what's up with these guys over here? Like, they want to know that story more than the people over here want to tell that story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this had a slow, rollout. It was released, has the release of 1996, didn't release wide in the U.S. till January of 97. This is its, I pulled up
a good Christmas movie.
Yeah, again, it is going for that Oscar categories here, the Oscar bait type of movie, released in 96, so it can, slowly release into 97, get it nominated for the some awards. So, so its wide release open number 7 with did take in $7 million. Weird to see a number 7 movie with $7 million, even 14 years ago. It's weird to look at numbers that are actually bigger than $10 million. $10 million for an opening weekend being a good thing.
Casey,
yes,
you're older than that. 24 years ago.
Hey, well, even more so. These numbers are throwing me off here, seeing big numbers in a box office.
I was like, I graduated longer than that. Don't make me feel younger than I know I'm not.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go. Number 1 was The Relic, $12 million. Number 2 was Evita. Number 3, Michael. That classic.
Oh boy.
Number 4, Scream. Number 5, Jerry Maguire. Number 6, First Strike. And The People versus Larry Flint came in number 7.
Isn't First Strike a Steven Seagal movie?
I don't know, but just from the title, it sounds like it. It is not. It's a Jackie Chan movie. So,
well, I wasn't far off from
No.
It sounds like it was the 90s. So you had 4 people you're going to: Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Jackie Chan, maybe a couple other ones.
John Travolta.
Right.
Oh, Michael.
The real interesting number I just find on this weekend's box office is the number 17 movie, Independence Day, took in $37 in one theater.
What weekend did this open up?
This was its 29th weekend out for Independence Day. Obviously,
I know. Well, I'm not going to do the math. So, what weekend is this we're talking about?
For
Larry, for open at number 7. What weekend are we talking about right now here?
It's its first wide release, but its 3rd weekend in total. So it increased. When? Oh, I said already the 2nd weekend of January.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for the sake of Independence Day, you're literally talking about a movie that, hey, it may be one theater, but man, that was still being shown in the theater 6 months later.
Wow.
I just find it funny that it was, in one theater and pulled in $37.
Yeah, the $37 is what gets me. That's really interesting. I wonder how much a movie ticket was. So I wonder how many tickets that actually was.
I'm going to go with around 5. I'm going to get a bet it was about like a $5-6 ticket. So I'm thinking like 4 or 5 people.
That's even
Brian
better.
and his friends went and like, guys, it's January. Let's go watch Independence Day again.
Yes.
I'm going to watch it for the 37th time.
Right.
So those were the box office numbers, The People versus Larry Flint. Do you guys want to go into final thoughts for this movie?
Sure.
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 Who wants to? Brian, you want to start it off then with final thoughts and what's your score? What's your rating?
I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd, just because it is one of those, or is it? Yeah, I think it was 4 out of 5. It is one of those things that, if you know who Larry Flint was or what he did, whatever the case is, for a job, you're going to go into this with a thought in your plate, if that's not your type of thing and whatnot, but you have to really look at, again, he basically created a circus so then that way he could fight for everybody's ability and right to free speech. And I think this is one of those ones. It's an unconventional biopic, but I do think it's one that I think people should watch and understand why he did what he did. So I definitely think it is a good, solid watch, solid performances, a good story to show you, some of the unconventional ways of getting things done.
Absolutely. Yeah. I thought the movie was great. I thought it was a fun watch. I thought I knew what I was getting into and I didn't, but I think that's kind of Larry Flint in general. I found it super interesting. The performances were amazing. So I don't even care if other people like this movie. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was super entertaining and it just made me want to know more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you would have said that beforehand. I want to know more about Larry Flint.
Right. I haven't had enough Larry Flint in my life, so.
I'm a little less excited about this than you guys were. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I think it's a good movie. Very strong performances, especially Harrelson and Courtney Love. But for me, there's some things that just kind of deterred from it that I brought up. Some story aspects of this that I think just didn't fully work for me in this. But I do think it is a movie. If you're kind of on the fence on, and if you haven't ever watched before, it's definitely worth the watch. I do think it is worth that, and I think especially for Harrelson in this movie, I think that's the reason to watch this movie is for his performance in this movie. And again, if you don't know who Larry Flint is, like myself, this is also just a good history lesson of who this guy was and who really like the brass tacks of what this guy was all about. So I think
like what he stood for and how it actually might affect your life currently. Yeah.
This is one of those movies, and I know we've talked about it in the past and whatnot for various other kind of like biopic type of movies and whatnot, is I do legit think this is the kind of thing that needs to be seen in school. You give me that look, Casey, but no, for the sake of
what kind of school is showing this?
No, but that's what I'm saying though. For the sake of fighting for your right to freedom of speech, for the sake of maybe like a government class or like a history class or something like that, whatever the case is, you're not just going to watch this in gym class because you guys are bored and you don't want to do something or whatever the case is, but something where the historical aspect of this is prevalent to a topic of discussion.
Right.
Is where I would think something like this needs to be, just the same as, for instance, like when we talked about Malcolm X and stuff like that, there's historical aspects of it to give you an understanding of what he did and what he accomplished is why I would think something to that respect.
In a real digestible way, too, because they've kind of cleaned it up. They've kind of made it more interesting. I did hear that some law schools do show this movie. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see this shown in a collegiate aspect of being shown in classes. Not a chance in hell any school in the high school or otherwise in the United States would show this movie at all. Yeah,
they'll show the 45-minute version.
They'll show the
TBS version where they have painted on bikinis and
Yep.
But I think the person of Larry Flint is a great topic of discussion that you could start to bring up into high school, territory, and at least talk about him and censorship at that point. I think that is something definitely that should be brought up more in schools too. So any educators out there listening, please watch movies and educate through movies. They're a good, useful tool for that.
Right.
All right, so let's kind of wrap this thing up then here. Let's jump into, have you guys watched this movie out there? Let us know your comments. Let us know your thoughts on The People versus Larry Flint. Do you think Harrelson should have won for Best Actor that year? Let us know in the comments. Let us know on our social medias. But if you do like this podcast and you want some more of what we do, check us out on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Amazon Music, and on YouTube. Give us a subscribe there if you can. Drop a comment on any of those or a review. We do appreciate any feedback that we do get on the show on those platforms.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there also is another way if you want some more content from us. You can join our Patreon, which is at patreon.com/backlot605. That is where you can join the $1, $3, and $5 tiers. By doing so, you get different perks, different benefits of joining those. $5 tiers, you get that bonus episode each and every month, which we'll probably reveal on the last episode of this series what movie we will be discussing. So. Brian, where can they find us on the interwebs?
I was just going to make a quick note here. One of our patrons is right there.
She is right there. And we'll give a shout out. Yes. We'll give a shout out to all of our patrons, including Local Lou, Logan, Blake, Andy, Derek, Corey, and Darren. Thank you guys all so much for helping us out. We do appreciate it. We really do.
I had to bring that up. I'm sorry. As for the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all are at Backlot605. Come check us out. Also on Facebook, we've got the South Dakota Film Community Group where we just like to talk and have fun about the movies and things we're seeing. So definitely join the conversation.
Mm-hmm. And more importantly, let's throw it off to Local Lou for her plugs of the Local Lou podcast and your new movie podcast too. I do want to hear about, because we have not actually talked about that with you on the show yet.
Yes. Yeah, no, I have my Local Lou podcast where you can find me on Instagram at Local Lou Podcast or any of the places that you can find podcasts. But I also started another podcast that has movies in it. So Corey Jacobson and I, who is Somewhat Random Movie Collections, we started This Movie's History. We're still kind of playing with it, but it's kind of just fun. I don't know about you guys, but this whole pandemic is getting pretty old. There's not a lot to do. So we are going through a bunch of movies that I've never seen. And we just watched Straight Jacket, which is amazing, and did a podcast on that kind of because Fat Dude Digs Flicks and Blake kind of talked about it in the Criterion. It was like, that sounds too amazing not to watch. So I'm just getting to, I don't know, experience all these really cool movies that I have no idea exist. So nice. I love that.
And Corey, if you are listening, because Local Lou has said she has not seen Silent Night, Deadly Night, I am hoping for a Silent Night, Deadly Night and a Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 maybe episode coming out. That's.
I don't like this anymore. I don't want to watch Silent Night, Deadly Night. I'm sure he has it.
I guarantee Corey has it.
Oh, he just said yes, he does. So.
And you know what? I know Corey can maybe hear us right now, or if he's listening, we do need to have Corey on pretty soon. So I'll reach out to him. So if people are looking for some more Somewhat Random Movie Collection on Backlot, I think we have something in store for Mr. Corey Nels Jacobson on the show.
Oh, rock on. Yeah, his brain is insane. Like the movie stuff is just, I don't know half the words and movies and directors. And it's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Because Corey's brain is a dark, dark place.
Corey's brain is a dark place, yes.
Corey's brain is that of a video store. It's just that's the aisle.
Yes.
I love it. Corey,
we love you, Corey.
We love Corey. If you need more Corey and Lou, go check it out. This Movie's History. Is that available everywhere you get your podcast?
Yeah, it is. Yep. Corey puts it on his Instagram page, and I kind of put it in my stories from time to time. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. If you guys are listening, go check out both of those podcasts. Awesome listens to have, on your podcast feeds. So do you guys have any other final thoughts, any final notions you want to throw out to the listeners? No?
Go check out Larry Flint. He's an interesting dude.
Super interesting.
Oh, I guess there is one more thing I do want to throw out here. It's what movie we're doing next week, if you want to do your homework. Next week, we're going to continue Versus Month with Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So we're going to, throw Mr. Pilgrim out there here halfway through this miniseries. So Scott Pilgrim versus the World, a movie that made our top 20 movies of the decade list. So we will be talking about Scott Pilgrim versus the World next week on the show.
Who played that? Do you remember?
Mr. Andy Heller of Fat Two Dicks Flicks played Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Good call. Good call.
That was a great call. Let's kind of wrap this thing up. Thank you all again for listening. Thank you, Mrs. Local Lou, for joining us on the show. We will have you back anytime you want to come back on.
Yay!
All right. So for Brian Mensing, I am Casey Kelderman, and you know what? We'll check y'all out next time on the Backlot of South Dakota.